Hello, I'm Michael Malora, and this is an overview of my current process for creating stylized 3D characters, animations, and scenes. The purpose of this video is to exemplify my techniques and skill level as I create this practice project. Alright, let's get into it. The character. I start off by sculpting a fairly realistic stylized female head, an adventurer in her early 20s. I went off of some reference pictures to get accurate proportions, but this is mostly from imagination. After doing a rough sculpt of the general form, I bring in an old retopology and shrink wrap it to it. Now I use this to create low poly models of the clothes and other pieces of the outfit, keeping in mind how I'm going to rig them later. I duplicate these low poly pieces and sculpt the detailed outfit. Once that's done and looking nice, I realign any of the old low poly pieces and add detail if necessary. This is now my new retopology. Now I'm going to apply the detail from the sculpt to the topology. I'm going to do this in two different ways. First, I'll add a subdivision modifier to the retopology and shrink wrap it onto the base sculpt. That way, I don't get these low poly jagged lines around the model and get more detail out of the sculpt. Next, I'll bake the normals from the sculpt to the shrink wrapped retopology to get the detailed shadow information of the sculpt. I'll bake the ambient occlusion as well, which I use for texturing. I now move the sculpt to a separate file and link it back into my character file. This keeps my file size down. For texturing, I assign each material of the outfit to a gradient that is driven by a base texture that I created using the ambient occlusion and normal map. I then bake these to one texture, but before I do that, I add in some lights to drive that texture so that I can bake in a little bit of lighting even to the base texture. This will add a neat effect where there will be more detail in the lit areas and less in the unlit areas, just like we see in real life. This will also give me a nicer base, as this is just my base texture for painting. So I hand painted the whole face, but didn't do much to the outfit to save time. I'm pretty happy with how that base texture turned out as is. I just did a little cleanup. Finally, I'll add the hair, as well as the tongue, teeth, and eyes. I'm now ready to rig. Now typically to rig a character, I just reuse a rig I've previously created, but I learned a lot recently, so I did it from scratch. Create the deformation bones and weight paint them to the character. Create corrective bones and twisting bones for more realistic deformations. Add the drivers and mechanisms to automatically incorporate these bones, and add in tweaker bones so you can create all kind of weird shapes, which can be especially useful in fast motions and impacts. Then I added in a nice fall off for the chest and hips, and set up the IK for the arms and legs. Using a Python script, I added IK to FK and FK to IK snapping, so I don't have to do all the little guesswork when animating later. All the Python scripts I use are originally from Key2 Design's Art of Effective Rigging Part 2, and they are fairly simple and made quite easy to understand, so they're quite easy to edit and really nice to implement. I created some IK fingers as well, because I wished I had them in the past, and had an idea for a shot that I think can incorporate them. Plus, now they are part of my base rig, for any similar characters going forward. I created a detailed face rig, with lots of relations between different parts of the face, to create realistic fall-offs, which make it so nice for the animator, i.e. future me. For the hair, I'm not too happy with how the rig turned out, to be honest. I think I need to spend more time in the creation of the hair itself. And since I didn't do that, it was kind of a paint to rig and a paint to animate, and didn't turn out very well. So I'll take another look at that next time. A few more drivers, custom shapes, and some Python to create my own nice custom rig UI, and she's done. It took probably a week to create the character and a week to rig. In the future, when I'm using this rig as a base, I could probably cut the process down to about a week, depending on the complexity of the character. The scenes themselves were pretty simple. I blocked out the first shot and then did some low poly modeling of the trees and rocks, and added in some grass leaves by modifying geometry nodes, and then I painted the environment, occasionally baking the lighting beforehand in order to have that as a bit of a guide. The second shot, similar thing with blocking it out. The background is 2D and just painted since it's so out of focus. The moss is painted again and then has some hair on top of it to make it look a little bit more fuzzy. And then some of it is rigged and others are just deformed by shape keys. This gold material is a painted layer that is then gradually turned on by a noise texture that is being used as a mask. I added some fog, some fireflies, some falling leaves, and also some just kind of dust particles in the air. And then on the first shot, I did also add some fog cards in order to give it a little bit more texture in the midground. For the title shot, it's just some rigid body physics simulations and then some painting on top of that and behind it. Animation is one of my favorite parts of the process, so it was really fun to get into practicing that with this new character, and especially the new and improved face rig, and I'm looking forward to having these new features on the future characters I create. Alrighty, that's it.